I think that the rest of the country has a right to at some point ask, is this not the city that they've asked for? Is this not the vision if they vote for a guy like Mamdani, if they embrace open migration? Is this not their vision of New York?
Yeah, I think people are wondering what's going on because it's not right for a mayor to not be condemning terrorists inside New York City. We all know what happened on 9/11. What would they have said if 9/11 happened yesterday? Would they say it was just a flight error from Al Qaeda? You know what I mean? And so a lot of people are wondering, okay, like I already said, who's here to support us? And people are just probably a little disheartened to see that the mayor can't even condemn a terrorist attack. And that's what people have been
And
saying.
did you hear that from the people?
Yeah, a lot of
You
people.
did.
I've
You
been
heard
talking
that
to a lot of people.
This disheartened point of view.
Yeah, a lot of people are disheartened because imagine you have a mayor who's not willing to condemn a terrorist. And so people are thinking, well, what is going on? How did we actually come to this point where we voted in a person who won't condemn them? Is it because of the religion aspect of this? But at the end of the day, it's a fact that there was 2 bombs thrown.
Yeah. How about this, Nick? You did well over an hour live stream. You've been on the streets several times in New York. How do you feel like people are responding to the war in Iran?
Yeah, that was very interesting. So I did a live stream and I invited 4 people on with 4 different perspectives. A person who was anti-war, a Jew as well, American Jew, and then Iranian, and then also Jake Lang, who they threw the bomb at. So I had all these people on, and then even some locals in New York City came out, and they said, well, the war happened 47 years too late. They're Iranian. And so the view from the people, especially on the topic of the war in Iran, they're happy that it happened. And like the one man said, it was 47 years too late. Now, other people were saying that, well, it was maybe inevitable this was eventually going to happen. And then also younger generations were thinking, well, do I want to go to war? I think younger people, like even myself, I'm worried, like, if we do get into this war and more, will there be boots on the ground where people end up dying? We don't want to see any young men or women die. But I think that it's a very interesting topic right now in the country because you have so many different people who could be affected from this. And you have people who are supporting it and then people who don't and people who are interested to see what happened. Me personally, I'm thankful that our president at the time is President Trump because he did do it in a different way than all the other presidents in the past.
So I would assume the Iranian point of view from America, so Iranian in New York, and the point of view, and I'm making an assumption of the American Jew was that this is a good thing for the future of the Middle East.
Yes. Especially the Iranian people. They were super excited.
And what about the younger people? You talk about them worrying about the war spiraling into something that could bring younger generations face to face with war. Were they more of that point of view or the one that you shared that you have, which is one that I have, that whatever concerns I have about the lessons learned from Iraq and Afghanistan are somewhat alleviated by the fact that we have a president making the decision now who seems and has earned the benefit of the doubt to be opposed to allowing anything like that to happen in Iran?
Yeah, I think so many people are concerned that if we were to go to war and it's boots on the ground, that something might happen where we're there for a long time and where Americans could die. Like, does it make much sense for an American who's from, let's just say Texas, for instance, who's never actually been to that part of the world, who's actually never even interacted with that people of that country, to then go and die on their soil? But I think what we are seeing is different with President Trump in a way where, for instance, Maduro, he went and did that in one night. You know, he went and killed the Ayatollah in one day, the start of the war. It didn't take them years to go out and do it. So I do have faith and confidence in President Trump in the way that he actually is conducting stuff. He's not just trying to beat around the bush and say we're going to get to the root cause. He's actually getting and taking out the root cause of these issues.
When you find people who are supportive of the war, Nick, what rationale do you find most compelling to those supporters? Is it, as you mentioned, that it's actually a war that's been going on for 47 years, that Iran has been asymmetrically attacking Americans across the globe, and this is actually the end of the beginning of the end of a 47-year-old war? Or is it more of the geopolitical chessboard where people see the effects on a threat they do recognize in China?
I think it's a bit of both. I think more than anything, it's about them having the nuclear power, and that they're actively wanting to go about with death to America. They chant it often, and so I think people realize that they actually are a threat. And if they were ever to get to those nuclear powers, like they've been building, and like the politicians have been saying they are building, might as well go and protect ourselves. And we do know that they are like the head of terrorism, especially in that region.
When you're out on the streets of New York and you're getting this point of view, one of the stats that really sticks out to me, it actually has some overlap with some of the stuff that you've done in Minnesota. And the stat sticks out to me as something like 40% of New York is foreign-born population of New York. At various times throughout our history, it has been that way. Not always, but often it has been a huge foreign-born population. That's how we are today. And a lot of that population does come from the Middle East, from Muslim countries, from really all over the globe. It's New York City. So do you find a big divide in opinion when you talk to people who are immigrants or the children of immigrants than you do from people whose families have been longtime Americans?
You do see a big divide, but it's also interesting because you actually see the perspective from people whose families had left that country, like the Iranian perspective on this war. They're all happy. Like younger kids are even happy because they've heard the horrific stories from their parents. And so you do see a lot of different perspectives, but then you also have like the radical perspective where a lot of people who are foreign born, like a lot of these protests that took place for years, where a lot of people who were not from America or whose parents were not from America, and they also bring these ideologies.
Right.
So it's just super interesting to see how different topics and how different places in the world can bring such different opinions to the conversations, when in reality, if you're here in America, you want to put America first, you want to see America succeed more than any other country. So I do think there is a bit of a problem with people who have the perspective of not from being here, born in the United States, but also having their like allegiance to another country.
Yes. And that's part of the story of what just happened with the bombing attempt of the protesters toward the protesters outside Gracie Mansion, is that these two guys were, yes, American citizens, but they were children of immigrants from Afghanistan and Turkey who had been naturalized over the past 20, 25 years in America. And the question is, where is your allegiance? To what is your belief? And who are you here for? Is it America?
Yeah, it's such a great question. For instance, why is Ilhan Omar not able to stand up when they ask her, when at the State of the Union they talk about condemning political violence, and she won't stand up and condemn it? Why is she so always pandering to the Somalian population when in reality she's in control of United States citizens? And so I think that's such a great conversation to have, is asking people, who's your alliance or who's your allegiance to? Like who do you actually want to see succeed in this world? Do you want to see your country where you're actually not even from, where your parents are from, succeed, or where your feet are at here in the United States?